Hello, and good morning. And I'm tired of hearing this debate about global warming, whether for or against it. I think what we need to do is get to the facts, and we need to get the appropriate data to get a basic understanding of global warming. There are a lot of contributing factors in global warming, a lot more than you may would understand. A lot of these scientists are basing their data on just surface temperature alone. They're basing it on, ocean temperature alone, atmospheric temperature alone, basing it on the fact that there's a hole in our ozone above the, I think it's the South Pole, I believe it is. I'm pretty sure it's the South Pole. Not to mention all the greenhouse gas effects and all the industrial pollution we put in the air and all the spacecraft we put through space. So there are a lot of factors, and a lot of those factors are man-made. I know you hear all these debates with these top scientists and these top, environmentalist people and all these top politicians, and they're just poking at the air. They're just poking at things that are meaningless. You got to look at the data that matters. The data that matters is the fact, what are the catalysts that are causing these factors in the environment? One. Second, you have to look at the data over time. And after you look at the data over time, you got to realize that catalyst has a big effect too. So what happened 50 years ago, as opposed to what happened 10 years ago, will be insignificant because a catalyst speeds up the process of things. Okay? And there are a lot of different catalysts, a lot of chemicals that we put in the environment that cause damage to the ozone and cause a lot of greenhouse effects. But now that I've got your interest flowing about the idea that it's not just one set thing that causes global warming, this is why my statement is global warming does exist, and it is somewhat man-made, and trends do have an effect on it. But now if you come to an age where the trends for things to warm up, and then you add on top of that the greenhouse effect, you add on top of that the catalysts, the ocean temperature changing because of the plankton dying in it, all these environmental disasters and things that are going on, and the lack of oxygen in the atmosphere because the ozone was depleted. So there are a lot of factors that go into this global warming. But I'm going to give you a history and show you that global warming is in effect. For the last 25,000 years, okay, the global temperature's only risen 36 degrees. 36 degrees. Now my calculations is every 3,600 years, that happens to be 7 degrees. We're talking about 3,600 years, approximately 7 degrees. And if you want to calculate that in terms of each 100 year, I believe you're getting to the point where it's like 12.5 degrees per every 100 years. That's insignificant. But we're talking about the last 100 years. It says the National Institute of Science has said that the temperatures went up at approximately 1 degree, and some scientists said between 1 and give or take 0.6 degrees. 1 degree is kind of significant, okay? And they also said that if the temperature exceeds 2 degrees, that's enough to melt the glaciers. And the glaciers are melting. I mean, they're talking about complete melting at 2 degrees. At 1 degree, there is significant melting happening right now. And whether it is man-made or whether it is a trend, I think it's both the trend and the man-made factor working hand in hand. So you're accelerating the process of the trend that's actually in effect. So you have all these scientists pitting all this, outdated data. All this data in the last 100 years could be meaningless if there's a catalyst in effect. Okay? If we're damaging the factors that will cause global warming, first of all, the plankton in the ocean is dying. They've already said that the ocean temperature has risen. Now, there's certain levels of the ocean they said has pretty much stayed the same or have gotten a little colder. But now here's where it gets interesting. Okay? This is what gets interesting right here. Where we have fluctuations throughout the years where temperatures rise and fall. And we're not talking about the overall global surface temperature. We're talking about different areas getting warmer and colder, and weather trends changing. Okay, the El Niño effect and all that stuff. But I want you to get a clear understanding of what happens when glaciers melt. When these large chunks of ice break off these large glaciers, like Greenland, for instance, where do these chunks of ice go? They float out into warmer water. And in fact, when they reach the warmer water, you got these large chunks of ice can change the temperature in that immediate area. When this ice evaporates and melts as it gets into salt water and warmer climate, it can cause the temperature to decrease a little bit. Not really significantly, but enough that it's noticeable. So people say, oh, that's just a trend. It got colder here last week. It snowed. No. Certain areas of the planet will get colder as things get warmer. We got to keep our mind on the fact of the overall temperature of three main factors. We got to look at the core of the Earth's temperature, obviously. I mean, I don't know how many people debate the fact that that has an effect. Then you got to look at the ocean floor temperature and the ocean surface temperature and the mid-range temperature there on the ocean. And then you have to look at the surface temperature, and then you look at the lower atmosphere and the upper atmospheric temperatures. All these have factors. Not to mention that, like I told you about, the ozone layer that's depleted of the South Pole. There are other places where it's been gradually getting better, but over a long period of time, 1/6, maybe more than that, but I would say 3 times the amount of ozone layer that was once there is no longer there. Over time, it has been depleted by, I don't know, maybe by forest fires, maybe by pollution, maybe by a lot of other factors. But in the last 100 years, there's been a significant change in global temperature. You got to look at the overall factors. You can't just look at some data from one scientist to the next scientist. You got to come to concrete data. Concrete data are things that are pretty much etched in stone. We know for a fact that the Earth goes through trends. That's pretty much etched in stone. Okay. We also know that global greenhouse does have an effect on the atmosphere, as far as charging the atmosphere to get heated. That is etched in stone. These are factual things, okay? We know that the ocean temperature fluctuates, but it has been rising in temperature. And the way I can prove this is not just by scientists examining the ocean by their instruments and stuff like that. We're talking about a satellite that's up there that watches the different changes in the ocean. There's a satellite out there, and they've been ranging the different temperature ranges in the ocean have been rising significantly. Not to mention with the water rising in the ocean. Now, there's flooding in Australia, significant flooding. And there's other outlying small islands that are being flooded too. So we do know that the water level is rising, maybe in a small margin, but if it rises even a few inches, it has a significant effect on a lot of places, a lot of things. Now, I'm going to keep giving you facts here. I want you to see these facts and don't listen to all the political mumbo-jumbo out there and the scatterbrained scientists that are giving you schizophrenic information. You go with the concrete information. You go with the concrete data that I'm giving you. Catalyst. Look up the word catalyst. The catalyst is a chemical reaction or change in the physical state of something. Whenever we alter the chemistry of our planet, the ocean, the air, oxygen level, anything, when we change this, we change the function of trends that naturally happen. We actually change the trend. If you change the Earth so that it gets accustomed to warming up, the Earth does what it's trained to do to protect itself. A lot of people say, well, you're acting like the Earth is an organism. Well, in a sense, it is. You need to research this. Don't take my word for it. Study it. everything has, equal and opposite reaction. We know that for every action. So every time you do something to this earth, or you do something to society, you change the outcome of that physical thing. Now, I know, and they gave me a little more time on YouTube. Now, I don't know why, but they gave me a little more time. They said I can have 15 minutes as opposed to 10, which is fine, because I got a lot to say on these things. And I want you scientists out there to quit itching your head and depending on your outdated data and your data you think that's up to date, because catalyst will change the whole program, and you got to look at all the factors. You can't look at one or two individual factors, but there are some things that I told you that are concrete, the evidence. And I would suggest that in 25,000 years, if the temperature has only gone up 36 degrees, and they're always talking about, oh, it's just a trend. Well, in the last 100 years, is one up 1 whole degree on average, and they're speculating that it's going to go up to 2 degrees. If it makes that margin of 2 degrees, there are going to be extreme change in the environment. Says, well, that's not that extreme. You don't understand the concept of catalyst once again. The concept of catalyst is when things change the physical outcome, things change, they inadvertently change everything. Everything gets involved. Okay, so you got to look at the concept of all these factors working together as a whole and what they're doing. And what they're doing, my friend, is causing global warming. I'll give you all the scientific information you need to know about it, and I'll keep researching it. And I'll keep showing you that what we've done to our environment can be irreparable. It may not be able to be changed because we're waiting too long. One, and I know for a fact, as I don't know if I mentioned on this video, that we have the technology to do away with fossil fuels. We've had it for over 60 years. Electromagnetic energy, perpetual energy caused by magnets, and and it goes on, the list goes on. We can take energy from the air. We've had that capability. We can take microwaves and convert them into electrical energy. We're so far outdated, it's incredible. We're 40 or 50 years behind the curve, my friends. And the only reason you're not hearing about this technology, and it's not coming out to you, branching out to you the way you needed to hear about it is because you're talking about people's pockets being emptied. And about people living a life where they don't have to spend tons of money on fossil fuels and being dependent on the government and being dependent on all the subsidiaries and all the other things out there that control human beings. And I've heard people say that, well, we're debating this global warming, we're causing the people over in Africa to go hungry. Bullshit. We send food over there. They do not get because of their government. We have to be able to teach them about agriculture. We can grow things in their climate, in the harsh climate, that can sustain their life. Hemp seeds can sustain their life, and it's easily grown in any harsh environment. They're neglecting that. And I have a lot to say about this whole thing. And you scientists out there, you better get on the ball. Quit getting your mind all wrapped up in a box. You can't live in this box, this perpetual scientific box that you live in, where you agree with every other scientist and their data and their outcome. Be outspoken. Be a real scientist. A real scientist researches and understands that science over time does change. It is not set in concrete like they try to say it is. It is not. The scientific mind concept that I learned in sociology is a bunch of crap. Science does change over time. The science and analytical mind will change over time. It is not etched in stone. Our minds evolved and we change. So get your mind and gear, scientist, and tell the people the real facts and research everything, not just one little piece of data, because that's not going to inform people and that's not going to teach you the true aspect of what global warming and the effects of the environment are. My time's out here, so I got to go. I'll be back to talk to you more. You scientists, get on the ball. Quit talking crap and do the right thing.